on solving compound inequalities. -5 less than x plus 1 less than 2. Now that's how you would read it from left to right, but basically if you notice the x is in between these two inequalities, okay? So looking at these two inequalities going from x is basically saying that x is greater than this and x is less than this. But we have this plus 1 here, which we need to get rid of. So, how we've always said in class, if you do one to one side, you have to do to the other. Well, now you have what you do to one side, you do to them all, which means I'm going to take the inverse operation here of a positive 1, which will give me a -1. So instead of subtracting 1 and just leaving it like that, I have to do it to them all. If you notice, you kind of have 3 different parts, okay? Which is why I mean you have to do to them all. You have to subtract 1 from all of the parts. Okay, again, it's almost like 3 little problems all put together. So this one cancels, allowing the x to fall down by itself now. You can bring down the inequality signs. 2 take away 1 is 1. -5 minus 1 is going to give me -6. Now how you read this is x is larger than -6 but smaller than 1. What does that translate to? That means there is a range of an answer. The answer can go larger than -6, so -6 is as small as this number goes, but it cannot pass up 1. So let's draw ourselves a graph for this. Okay, on one end I'm going to have -6 since that is my smallest number I'm going to. And I'm going to go ahead and put down 0. And then I'm going to go ahead and put down 1. The reason I'm not filling this whole thing in is you really don't need it. Now these are going to be open circles because both of my inequalities are just greater than or less than. They're not equal to's. So I'm going to put a circle here and a circle here. This means the answer falls between these points. Could be any of these numbers in between these points. It could be all of the numbers in between these points. You're going to get like a range type answer. And that's it. That's how you would solve that problem. All right, let's do a couple more. How about this one? We have 8 is less than 3x minus 1 less than or equal to 11. Okay, same thing. Our goal is always to get the variable by itself. So right now the variable is attached to this -1. So the inverse operation of a -1 will be to add 1. So what we do to one side, we do to them all. Again, think of it as a 3-part series. The 1's here cancel, dropping my 3x down. And I'm going to go ahead and drop down my inequalities, just how they are. And now I'm going to go ahead and solve. 11 plus 1 is 12. 8 plus 1 is 9. Now, to get that variable by itself, I need to do the inverse operation here. Well, right now that 3 is being multiplied to x, so I'm going to divide by 3. What I do to one, I do to them all. Again, all 3. My 3's cancel here, allowing my x to fall down. Now I'm going to look. This was a positive 3 that I divided by each time, so my inequality signs do not need to flip. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 3 goes into 9 3 times. And that's my final answer so far. Next step would be to draw out the graph. But let's see how you read this correctly. X is bigger than 3, but x is smaller or equal to 4. Okay? So we're going to draw our line. And what this is saying is x has to be bigger than 3. But it can be 4 or less. Very small spot on this number line here. So we have a 3 and we have 4. Open circle on the 3 because it's just a greater than. but closed circle on the 4 because we have the equal to, and the range is in between the two of them. And that's how you do that. Okay, let's do some more. All right, I have -9 less than x minus 10 less than -5. Again, our goal is always to get the variable by itself. Right now, it's being subtracted by 10. So the inverse operation of -10 would be to have it as a positive 10 or add 10. And you do to all three parts here, or all three sections, allowing these 10s here to cancel, my x to fall down, my inequality. -5 plus 10 is going to leave me with a positive 5. Bring down my inequality here. -9 plus 10 is going to give me a positive 1. So how do we read this? Always start in the middle when you start to read, and go this way and then go that way. Okay? X is greater than 1, because remember, it's always going to be open to the one it likes, the greater one. So x is bigger than 1, but it's smaller than 5. That's how you would write that answer. X is bigger than 1, but smaller than 5. So I'm going to do 1. Maybe I'll put a 3 here. And 5. Okay? I have open inequalities, so open circles, and it has to be bigger than 1, but less than 5. So that means everything right here in the middle is fair game. All right, we have -4 less than or equal to 3n plus 5 less than 11. Again, our goal is to get the variable by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5 from all three parts, getting those 5s right there gone, dropping down my 3n. Okay, my inequalities will fall down exactly how they are. All right, we have -4 minus 5 is going to give me a -9. 11 take away 5 is going to give me a positive 6. Divide by 3 to get that n by itself. Do that to all three parts. The 3's cancel, allowing the n to drop down. I divided by a positive, so I do not need to flip my inequality signs. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 3 goes into -9. -3 times. All right, let's look at our number line here. How do we read this? Again, start in the center and read it that way first and then that way. So we have n has to be larger or equal to -3. So I'm going to start with a -3. It's greater than or equal to, which means it's going to get a closed circle. Now let's read this side. N has to be smaller than 2. So let me put a 0 here to show that we're getting larger, and then I'll put a 2 here. It has to be less than 2, but it's not an equal to, so it's an open circle, which means this is our range in between these 2 points. 8 plus t greater than or equal to 7. Or, and again, I want you guys using capital ors like that so you can see it easily, plus you don't think that's a 0. 8 plus t less than 2. So, again, you're doing 2 separate problems on this one. They did not combine them. They kept them separate, calling them union type problems. So, I want to get the variable by itself, and right now it's attached to a positive 8, so I'm going to subtract 8, or take the negative of 8, the inverse. Allowing this to cancel, my t falls down, my inequality falls down, 7 take away 8 is going to give me -1. Or, So my answer could be -1, or, let's see, I'm going to subtract 8 from this side, subtract 8 from this side. These cancel, t falls down, my less than symbol falls down. 2 take away 8 is going to give me -6. So how do we read this correctly? T is greater than or equal to -1, so it has to be bigger than -1 or equal to it, but it has to be less than -6. So what does that look like? Well, we're going to draw ourselves a number line here. Okay, on this side, I'm going to put -6. All right, and then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and put -1 up here, and maybe, I don't know, maybe +1, just so it's there. So we have that it's going to be less than -6. It's open circle because it's not an equal to. Less, meaning it's getting smaller. Away from 0 is less. Okay? But on the other hand, it has to be bigger than -1 or equal to. So this one gets a closed circle, and since it has to be larger or equal to, that means the arrow is going to go this way. If you notice, it's leaving this gap right here. That gap is referred to as your union. It means there is nothing in this area that will ever be an answer for these two problems. Let's try another one. We have 4x less than or equal to 20, or 3x greater than 21. All right, let's put these together. I want to get the variable by itself. Right now it's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by 4 to each side. The 4's cancel. We get x. I divided by a +4, so I do not need to flip my sign. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Or, here on this side, I'm going to divide by 3, doing the similar as I just did, getting the inverse operation. My x falls down. It's greater than 7. And again, I don't flip my inequality because I divided by a positive. So how do we read this? X is going to be less than or exactly 5, but it has to be bigger than 7. So let's make our number line. Okay, I have, let's say, 5 here and 7 up here. All right, so x has to be less than 5 or equal to 5. So I'm going to put my circle on 5. I'm going to close it in. X is less, which means it has to go smaller than 5, going in that direction. But x has to be bigger than 7, keeping it an open circle because it's not an equal to. And that's how you would graph that problem. Let's do another. We have 2 plus r less than 12, or r plus 5 greater than 19. All right, let's get those variables by itself. Right now, this is a +2, so I'm going to take the inverse and -2, or -2. Same thing. The 2's cancel. My r drops down. 12 take away 2 is going to give me 10. Or, on this side, to get the variable by itself, take the inverse of a +5, make it a -5. R falls down, and I get 19 take away 5 is 14. So how do we read this? Well, we read this that R has to be smaller than 10, but bigger than 14. All right, so what does that look like? Well, that looks like we're going to have 10 and 14. So it's smaller than 10, but it's bigger than 14. And that's it. All right, I hope this helped you with your homework tonight.